We're going to learn tonight about multiple different items. However, we've called this class Understanding the Dichotomy Between Holiness and Impurity. We're about to learn some very, very real concepts and some questions that we've all asked ourselves, and then, why is it so? Well, tonight you are about to find out why are certain things the way they are. Starting off with the beginning of the Parashat. The Parashat starts off with a very interesting commandment. This commandment is a chok. A chok is a obligation that God gave us, and it's something we do not understand. We cannot rationalize with it. We can't wrap our head around it to say it makes sense. Now, yes, we can, but that's not the purpose why it was given. For example, the very fact that we are not allowed as Jews to eat meat and milk is a chok. It is a non-rationable, a non-understandable law. It's considered a chok. There are three categories. Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch goes on to explain the three different categories. We're not going to do it at great length, although he dedicates pages and pages to explain it. However, there are three different categories of mitzvot. Of commandments. There's a mitzvah, commandment. There's a mishpat, which we could call it as a law, and a chok is another type of law. Let me tell you just briefly the difference between them. A mitzvah is some type of, you want to call it ritual. For example, observing the Sabbath. For example, wearing tefillin, lighting Shabbat candles. Any ritual-based commandment, that's a mitzvah, that's a tzivui, that's a commandment. Now, next category is a mishpat. A mishpat is a law that makes sense, meaning it makes sense to not steal. It makes sense not to murder. It makes sense to pay for something when you acquire it, and so on and so forth. These are rational laws. And then there are laws that we cannot understand, the irrational laws, and that is a chok. As we gave an example of eating meat and milk, the very fact that we're not allowed to eat swine, or any type of pork for that matter, is all a chok. We could come up with ideas to rationalize why, but that's not what its intention when it was given. When it was given, it was do it, whether you understand it or not. This week we start with the para aduma, the red heifer. Now, the red heifer is a very, very interesting concept. We are going to learn even some reasons behind it that the Zera Shimshon is going to enlighten us with. However, it is a chok. It does not make sense for me to, and I'll go through it again later, but briefly, for me to take a cow whose hair is red and to slaughter it, burn it, and take those ashes and sprinkle it upon us in order for us to become pure. Does that make any sense? Why no? That's what we did. It does not make sense. Do not be fooled. It does not make sense. The only reason why we would do that is because God said so. Ashes does not make a person pure. Oh, because God said that's how a person can get out of the impurity of touching a dead body, then it works that way. But it doesn't make sense any other way. Something we need to understand. So what is this story of the red heifer? We have as a tradition that there are going to be a total of 10 red heifers, red cows, from the time of Moses, when he used the first, all the way until the time of the Messiah. 9 have been used, and that 10th is going to be prepared for us when we are ready, when we, as a Jewish people, as a world, have been ready to accept the Mashiach and welcome the Mashiach into our lives. We're working on it. It's been taking a long time.
It's already here.
Well, we're going to speak about that. We're going to speak about that. Okay? There have been 9, and there's going to be another one. A misconception is that there has only been 9, or that there's only going to be 10. That's true. There's only going to be 10 that are used. Okay? It's very possible, it's almost 100% sure that there have been more than already 9 red heifers. In our lifetime, just in recent years, we've had a couple of them. Okay? But they weren't used. They weren't used because we were not ready to Mashiach did not come. Mashiach didn't come and tell us he's here and he's ready to use it to bring us back to Jerusalem and start the service all over again. Okay? Now, what does that mean that there was one and there wasn't one? I'll give you an analogy before I get into some brief laws. This is always an introduction to the Zera Shimshon, but at least it gets us into the mode and to the mood of the Parsha. For example, look at my hair, whatever I have left of it, right? Okay? Still doing fine. Still, okay? When I was a child, when I was young, my hair was golden blonde. It was really, really nice, okay? We have pictures as proof, okay? But most children, or a good amount of children who are born with blonde hair, as they get older, it changes. It's dirty blonde, and then brown, and then before you know it, you're either losing it or it's turning gray and white, okay? The same thing is true with a red cow. Most cows are black or brown or white. Those are most cows. There is a small percentage of cows which are red, which their fur, which their hair is actually red. But if you wait too long, if the animal turns to be, let's say, 4 years oldish already, and older, then it just goes and it resorts to being another brown cow. So that's something interesting. So there could have been many, many red cows, but as it gets older, it just grows out of it. Now, some of the laws with the red heifer, and these laws were very specific. It has to be a red cow that obviously was not crossbreeded. It has to be, pure. It also could never have worked. A yoke could never have went on it. It could not be pregnant. It could not have any black or white hair. The truth is there could be two hairs that are not red, as long as they're not next to each other. Already the third hair disqualifies it, okay? Very, very, very intricate, because then it's already not considered a red heifer anymore, okay? Another is all the white aspects. The Talmud says that a real red heifer, all the white parts of its body had a reddish tinge to it. For example, the eyeballs, the teeth, the horns if it had any, the hooves. All of these items were white, but they had a true red cow, true red heifer, had all of these reddish tinges and characteristics to its very being. Okay? Having said that, we're still waiting for the red heifer. We are all in dire need of it. Ever since the last red heifer, there is no way for us Jews to get out of the impurity of what we call tumat met, the impurity of coming into contact with a dead body. There is no way to exit that. Not if you go into a mikveh, not if you go into a hot mikveh, a cold mikveh, the Arizal's mikveh, it doesn't matter what. That does purify from certain impurities, but it does not impurify from the highest level of impurity, which is coming into contact with a dead body. The red heifer was the only method to get out of that impurity. And that's what someone would need to do in order to do the service in the temple. So it's not applicable nowadays. So it kind of doesn't matter, but it's kind of something that we're looking forward to. Having said that, the Zera Shimshon now analyzes and he says, he wants to know, why is it that a dead body is impure? Why is it that coming into contact with the carcass makes and renders a person impure? What's the trigger? What's the reason that is so? Well, of course it's something spiritual, but what's causing it? So listen to, of course Hashem is causing it, but listen to how he explains it. He says that Mazikin are demons. They are negative angels. Okay, let's put it that way. Again, they are all emissaries of God. Just like the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, is also a messenger of God. And we might not like what he does, but after all, he's carrying out God's will. Just like the snake was something evil, the Yetzer Hara, something negative, but by the way, they all work for God. They are doing what God wants them to do. So don't get angry at them for doing their job. Rather change your job, change your position. Okay? Having said that, whenever a human being passes away, mazikin, these negative angels, these demons, they cleave, and they are so thirsty to want to cling to the dead body. This is the reason why the Zera Shimshon says that a dead body emits impurity. Okay? Now, he brings a proof to that. And this proof is going to really show us the true dichotomy between holiness and the opposite, and impurity. Okay? He brings a proof. The Talmud explains how the impurity that a dead body emits is does not only transfer when you touch it or lift it. A Jewish body, God forbid, when a Jewish person passes away, not only if you touch it or move it are you now in contact with the dead body and now impure. However, even if you're in the same room as the body, are you impure? That is specific to a Jewish carcass. What about a Gentile who passes away? The law is different. It's only if you touch the body or move the body do you become impure. Meaning, this room has a roof. Okay? This roof in Hebrew creates an ohel. An ohel is a roof. It's some type of barrier. A Jewish body that's in a room that passed away, the impurity that it contains now is so strong that it kind of bounces off the ceiling, and anything in that same ceiling all becomes impure. But that's not so for a Gentile body. Gentile body only when it's touched or moved. And the question is why? So the Zera Shimshon, yeah?
I wanted to know what you said about the mazikin. Is the impurity in the dead Jewish body?
Yes, the mazikin being there, by the demons being in the body, now the body is impure because it has all of that schmutz in it. Okay? I'm trying to speak in your language.
So even if you do a tahara and you put water on it, it doesn't... No. That is still, and that's why going to a cemetery, we wash our hands to remove the basic layer of impurity that we have, that we acquire by going to a cemetery. And that's why Kohanim still, even though they're not pure enough to do the service, they still they still avoid becoming impure again and again and again. That's why they don't go to a cemetery. So even a buried body still emits impurity. Now, so what's the difference between the Jewish body and the non-Jewish body? Why is there a difference that one of them bounces off the ceiling and impurifies everybody, and the Gentile body not? So Zera Shimshon explains, when a Jew is alive, what's in the body? What's in the bone and flesh? A neshama, a soul, a Jewish soul. That Jewish soul, which occupies the body, is really full of kedusha, of holiness. And the mazikin, the demons, although they're dying to get in, they can't, because the neshama is there. By the way, you know what the neshama is? The soul. The soul is a piece of God. It's in our bodies. It's in every one of us. We each have a piece of God. Okay? The mazikin, the demons, they cannot even come. They cannot enter. That's why when a Jewish person passes away, now this body that had a soul in it, the soul leaves, they are like dying to get in. It's called in a Kabbalistic term, it's called Maim Genuvim. It's stolen water. It's like the forbidden fruit. They were not allowed it, and now they're dying for it. But a Gentile, even in his life or in her life, are not completely foreign to the concept of impurity and mazikin and all these demons. They are in some way part and parcel of a Gentile, believe it or not. And that's why when they pass away, the demons don't run to their bodies as quick and as much as they do to a Jewish body. Okay? It's a little bit heavy, especially since we're talking about death, but I think we're very clear on the concept. This is the proof
the Zera Shimshon uses to prove the reason why there is impurity, the reason why a dead body emits impurity, is because we see the difference between when a Jew and when a Gentile pass away, the type of impurity the body emits. Having said that, the Zera Shimshon wants to analyze now what's the original source of impurity in the world. In our world, where was the first opening of impurity? So we know it's the Nachash HaKadmon, the snake, the serpent, which tricked Adam and Chava into eating from the forbidden fruit. That was the opening to impurity, to temptation, to lust, to death in this world. We spoke about this a couple months ago. There was a time, there was something that happened that put the angel of death out of business. Does anyone know what that was? No? The Sinai revelation. By the very fact that the Jewish people accepted the Torah, the angel of death was put out of business. There was no more impurity. There was not supposed to be any other struggles and tribulations. It was supposed to be it. What happened? What brought it all back? The sin of the golden calf. How did the sin of the golden calf happen if there was no more temptation, no more death, no more impurity? The mixed multitude, the exterior influence, the sitra achra, as we say in Kabbalistic term. All of that came and pushed, it did everything to get the Jews to stoop down and sit with the golden calf. The golden calf is the reason why there is impurity in the world today. Today. It's what messed everything up. The Zera Shimshon explains. We've said this before. This is not something new. Okay? Having said that, the Zera Shimshon says that the demons, the mazikin, they really try to cling to the highest souls, to the highest neshamot, to the most righteous, to the most scholarly, because there's such a potential over there. If they find a way in, they would love getting in on that. The Talmud says, the greater a person, the greater their evil inclination is. What does that mean? You're telling me the biggest rabbis, the leaders of the generation, they have harder temptation than us regular people? Answer is yes, because there always has to be an equilibrium. If they are so righteous, if they are righteous at this level, however, their temptation is only this low, it's no more a battle. There's no more concept of free will. So therefore, the better a person gets, the closer a person gets to God, so too does their Yetzer Hara get stronger and stronger and stronger. And for that reason, this whole concept explains how the demons, the mazikin, are attracted so much to lofty, to high, to great people. Having said that, the Zera Shimshon now goes on to explain and says, do you know why it's specific that a red heifer is the one that comes and purifies from impurity? What brought impurity back to us? The sin of the golden calf. How does that get fixed? By a red cow and a calf. The Midrash says, let the mommy, which is the red cow, come and clean up the dirt and the mess of her child, which was the golden cow. Right? Like everyone has a golden baby, golden child, right? Let the red cow come and clean up the mess of her baby. How so? By taking it, by slaughtering it, by burning the ashes. You know where the ashes are burnt? The ashes are burnt away from everybody. Why? To show and to take all the demons that are trying to attack the Jewish people, put it outside, put it away. And you know where the blood's sprinkled? The Zera Shimshon explains the blood is sprinkled opposite the Hechal, which is opposite the doors of the Kodesh HaKodeshim, the Holy of Holies. The Holy of Holies is where the menorah was lit. When the menorah was lit, you know what that did? That illuminated a light, a spiritual light of comfort for all Jews all over the world, showing this atonement. So the Zera Shimshon goes on to explain how it is a perfect way, although it's a chok, it's something we don't understand, but in another way it does make sense. The greatest thing that could come and fix for the reason that impurity is in this world. The reason why there's impurity in this world when you touch a dead body is because of the sin of the golden calf. The way to fix it is bring his mummy, bring the red cow, and let it come and clean it up. How? By sprinkling the ashes and the blood on the people. Now this is all very nice. How do we make this super practical? Now watch this. The Maharal. Has anyone heard of the Maharal? The Maharal of Prague? Fascinating, famous rabbi. Wrote tons of books. Anyone who really wants to understand Chumash, the Bible, must learn the Gur Aryeh, which the Maharal wrote on the Chumash. It is a fascinating piece of work. My Rebbe, Rabbi Berkowitz, for decades has been teaching every day from this book, believe it or not. Okay?
Russell next week.
Now, having said that, the Maharal explains something which we ought to know. There are different types of creations that God created in this world. Okay? The way that it's normally said over is that there are 4 different levels. The Maharal explains how there's really 5. Listen to this. And I don't mean this to be offensive, and I'll save myself, even though we're on camera and we're in front of thousands of people watching, but I'll save myself at the end. So bear with me. If you're listening, listen till the end, okay? Don't judge a book until you read it. So listen to this. The first and the lowest level of creation in Hebrew is called a domem. It's an inanimate object, such as a rock. Does a rock have feelings? No. Does a rock grow? No. Nothing happens. Does a rock, nothing. It's just inanimate. Then there's a level above. It's called, does anyone know? A tzomeach. Tzomeach is vegetation. Any type of vegetation. That's a second level. It already has, the Talmud says that even every blade has an angel, a blade of grass has an angel watching over it. So it's a level above a inanimate object. It's a vegetation. There is life to it. Okay? Then there is a chai bilti medaber. There is a live creature that cannot speak, such as animals. And then the 4th level is called a chai medaber, a living creature which can speak. Human beings, the human race, no monkeys, okay? This is not Darwinism. I'm not saying that a rock becomes a plant and a plant becomes an animal becomes a human being. I'm not saying that. These are different. This is actually, the Maharal's piece is actually coming to disprove the whole concept of evolution. Okay? It's a completely different creation. Now, the Maharal goes on to say that within Chai Medaber, within a live creature that speaks, there are 2 different types of creations. Okay? Ready? Don't turn off the screen, everyone. Okay? There is a Gentile and a Jew. They are completely different creations. Why? How could that be? Well, are we trying to promote anti-Semitism? What does that mean? No. It's the very fact that a Gentile has a nefesh. It's a type of a soul, but it's it's the run-of-the-mill type. It gives them the power to make free will, to decide if they're going to fulfill the 7 Noachide laws or not. And that's their purpose. As Jews, we have a neshama, a soul, which is a piece of God. Does that make us better? By the way, not. All it really does is it gives us more responsibility. Now, when we fulfill that responsibility, then it does promote us to be the chosen nation. But if not, it's actually worse for us. So the reason why I'm bringing this piece of Maharal to show us all these different types of levels of creation that God created is that there's also a mirrored barometer, the way I give this analogy. Does everyone know what a barometer is? Yes? Something to measure something? Okay, it's an instrument to measure. Okay? Now, the barometer of purity has a barometer of impurity. And if you would line them up, one would be upright and one would be below. As high as a person can get spiritually, that level, let's say a Jew can get to level 100 in spirituality, they can go as low as minus 100 in impurity. And let's say a Gentile, who they only have a 7 mitzvot, and even if they do them, let's say they could only get up to level 50, for argument's sake. They could only go as deep
as low as minus 50 as well. It's got to be the same. How high is how low a person can go. So what that means is that we have to understand that since we have a piece of God, we have this neshama, this soul in us, we have to understand that if we don't take care of it very specially, if we don't put it on the right track and we guide it properly, it can stoop, but it can fall so low. Like when the Jewish people were in Egypt. They stooped to the 49th level of impurity and it was almost too late to get out. How could they stoop and the Egyptians didn't? Because they had that potential. They had such a greater potential to raise so high, they stooped so low in exact comparison to how high. So what we have to understand is that we have this piece of God in us. We need to spare it and guide it the right way. I hate to say it, but we say it, we speak open over here, that those who display anti-Semitism the most, unfortunately, are some Jews. How could it be? How could they be self-hating Jews? It's because when they don't have the spark of God, they have it in them, but they don't know what to do with it. They stoop down so low. We see what some people can do. Destroy people's lives. Destroy Judaism. Destroy the state of Israel. How could they do that? They're Jewish after all. It's because that piece of God in them is not being nurtured and it's manifesting in a very negative way because they don't know what to do with it. It's very simple what to do with it. Open up what God has to say and read about yourself. Read about how you were created. Read about what you're supposed to do while you are created. So it's very important to know. This is why touching a dead body of a Gentile does not render, being in the same room as a Gentile body doesn't render us impure. Only touching it, it's a less level of impurity as a Jewish body. Why? Because the potential of the Jew rising and climbing is much more than a Gentile, and therefore, when it dies, and now there's the missing of the void of the piece of God that's in them, it stoops down to an even deeper level of impurity. Good? This is what I had to share on impurity versus holiness. Now we're going to move on to, again, I don't mean to be morbid, but also speaking about death, okay? In this week's Torah portion, someone very special to the Jewish people passes away. And that was Miriam HaNeviah, the prophetess Miriam. Miriam was Moses' older sister. She was also, by the way, Aaron's older sister. She was 3 years older than Aaron, and Aaron was 3 years older than Moses. And it was very sad that she had to pass, but listen, she was 125 years old when she passed, okay? Almost 126, and okay, so it's a nice ripe age to pass away, but it's still sad, it's still a hard thing to happen, okay? Miriam passes away at the beginning of the month of Nisan. 5 months later, Aaron passes away at the beginning of the month of Av. And then, almost 11 months after Miriam passes away, the 7th of Adar is when Moses passes away. So Miriam passed away first, a couple months later, Aaron, and then 6 months after that, Moses passes away. The Torah goes into describing their passing, but the Talmud also tells us that in the merit of these three righteous, amazing people, leaders of the Jewish people were gifted something along with them in the wilderness, during their travel in the wilderness. In merit of Miriam, they were gifted the well of Miriam. They were able to have drinking water. In the merit of Aaron, they were gifted the clouds of glory, the anane kavod, to protect them. And in the merit of Moses, they were given the manna, the wonder bread. That's what they ate for the 40 years of their traveling. It was a wonder, right? Man means ma. Okay, so it's called the wonder bread. Not the wonder bread you know, okay? Now, when they passed away, their merits stopped with them. Meaning, when Miriam passes, there's no more water. When Aaron passes, the clouds of glory go bye-bye. When Moses passes, there's no more wonder bread.
Okay? And it makes sense because if it's in their merit, but it's for everybody, so that's why it's gone. However, the Zera Shimshon makes, and I'm not going to go into it now because it's very, very deep, so just take his word and my word on the calculations between this, but he says he's proving from different midrashim and different mifarshim, commentaries, that Miriam's well did not vanish like this the day she died. Rather, prior to her death, it started diminishing and drying up gradually. So, and he proves this from different psukim, because when it says that Miriam passed away, well, she didn't really pass away yet chronologically, so how could it be that she died? So the Zera Shimshon answers it that she started dying then. How did she start dying? Because her well started diminishing and drying up. So the Zera Shimshon now asks, well, what does that mean? Why would her well, if it's given in her merit, slow down before she passes away? Let it just stop when she passes away. So listen to what he answers. This is something we've heard before. We've heard, and it's taught, that a soul knows 30 days before it's going on, that it is going on, that it is passing on. A soul feels it. Now, a human being, unless they're at a very, very high level, cannot articulate that feeling. Okay? But post facto, a person who's lost a parent or a grandparent or someone close, you go back and you say, he or she knew she was passing. Where does that come from? They can't articulate it because then it would be too much of an open miracle. But after the fact, you can go back and retroactively say, they felt like it was their time. Certain people call people they'd never spoken to before, give gifts, pay off bills. There's so many different things that people do, and why all of a sudden they're doing it now? You ask them why you're doing it? No, I just feel like it. Okay, then when they pass on, it made sense that there was an internal drive. Their neshama had this like alarm clock, this countdown. You're moving on soon. Take care of unfinished business. Okay, not like a ghost that comes back after it passes, right? Before they pass away. And the Zera Shimshon explains that's why Miriam's well started drying up 30 days before she passed away, because her soul felt that it was passing on to the world to come. Now wait, we could leave it at that. But now the Zera Shimshon asks the question, which I'm going to give for granted you all have in your mind. Well, what about Aaron and Moses' gift? Did the clouds of glory start diminishing 30 days before Aaron passed away? Did the wonder bread start diminishing in its amount before Moses passed away? Answer's no. So why not? Why only for Miriam and not for them? Okay, hear the question? So listen to how the Zera Shimshon answers. He says that when Aaron passed away, God had to do it, pardon my expression, in a sneaky way, in an inconspicuous way. Why? The Midrash says that if the Jewish people would have known that Aaron was going up to the mountain for God to take him, they would have prayed and cried their eyeballs out, not allowing God to take Aaron to the next world. And you know what Hashem would have had to do? Answer, because God cannot refuse the prayer of the masses. It's a proven fact. The Talmud speaks about it extensively. So God could not show any sign that Aaron was passing away 30 days before, because they would have put two and two together. Oh, before Miriam passed away, her water started diminishing by 30 days. Okay, now the clouds are starting to diminish. Okay, we have a 30-day countdown to start praying for Aaron to go. Why did they love Aaron so much? Aaron was a man of peace. He was a peacemaker. As the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot tells us, be like the students of Aaron. Ohev shalom, rodef shalom, karvan leTorah. Love peace, run after, pursue peace, and bring Jews close to the Torah. That's what Aaron did. Aaron was different than Moses. Moses was a leader. Leaders, good leaders, are never liked by everybody. It's not possible. Because certain times you have to say no. Have to reprimand, have to rebuke. That's what a leader does. Aaron was not known for that. Aaron was liked by all. So when it came to Aaron, the Midrash says if they would have known Aaron was going on, pass it on. They would have prayed to make sure it doesn't happen, that he doesn't die, and then Aaron had to stay alive. And that's not part of God's plan. Remember, God wanted the Jewish people to enter without Moses and Aaron into the land of Israel. That was God's master plan after the events that took place in the wilderness. So what about Moses? Moses had to pass away the same way Aaron did. And since Aaron had no forewarning, his merit did not diminish, Moses had to as well. Because the reason why they both passed on and they didn't enter the land of Israel, as Zera Shimshon explains, is because Moses, in this week's Torah portion also, hits the rock instead of speaks to the rock. And since they both had to pass on for the same reason, they had to die the same way with no forewarning of their merit starting to diminish and disintegrate. Okay? Now, something about Moses, and I was thinking about it today, and it's kind of sad, that the same way the Midrash says that if the Jewish people would have prayed for Aaron to live, he would have lived. You know what Moses was waiting for during his whole, from when he found out that he was not entering the land of Israel? You know how many times he prayed to enter the land of Israel? 515 times. That's a lot of time, okay? And God said, stop, because if you continue to pray, I'm going to have to let you in, and that's not for the better well-being of the Jewish people. But you know what Moses was waiting for, and it didn't happen? He was waiting for the Jewish people to pray for him. Because if they would have prayed for him, he would have been granted access, and it all would have worked out. Can you imagine Moses' feelings? His whole past 40 years, he dedicated day and night to the Jewish people. He took them out of every rut and hole they dug. He stood up for them. He put his own life on the risk. Time and time again. He was the greatest advocate of the Jewish people. And when he needed something, he was kind of looking for it, and they didn't give it to him. It's pretty sad. If you think of it, it's very sad. It's a concept of being ungrateful. And the truth is the Jewish people were known to do that because they were ungrateful when Miriam passed away. When Miriam passed away, the water ceased. Why did the water cease? Because the Jewish people did not mourn her passing. They mourned when Aaron and Moses passed away, but they didn't mourn when Miriam passed away. So you know what God did? Took away water. They got it back. But the whole point of that was in order for them to realize, hey, don't forget who that water came from. That water came from a matriarch, from Miriam. And you know why she was given water? Because she stood at 6 years old and risked her life and followed your leader, your deliverer, Moses, when he was put into the Nile River, and he followed. And then she went up and introduced herself to Batya and said, let's feed this. Water is life. You're forgetting who gave you life? We're going to take it away for you for a moment. So we have to always fall into, don't fall into the routine of being ungrateful and not expressing gratitude where it needs to be expressed. And again, with this concept of the well, the commentaries, the Talmud tells us, and it asks the question, well, why is this story, the episode of Miriam passing away, in the same Torah portion and juxtaposed right next to the red heifer? What does one have to do with another? It's definitely not chronologically right now, because the story of the story of Balak happened before Miriam passes away, which we're going to speak about in next week's Torah portion. So what's the reason that it's being mentioned now? So you know what the Talmud answers? Rashi quotes it as well. In order to teach us, I'm going to read it to you. Rashi says, Lama nismecha mitat Miriam le parashat paraduma. What's the reason that the death of Miriam is put next to the concept of the red heifer? Listen to what the Talmud says. Lomar lecha, in order to tell you, ma korbanot mechapri, in the same way that a sacrifice atones, so too af mitat tzadikim mechaperet. So too the death of righteous people also brings atonement. This is what the Talmud says. So the Zera Shimshon asks, 1 second, how does the death of a righteous person bring atonement? On the contrary, we see over here, we see the death of Miriam actually punishes the Jewish people. What's atonement? Atonement is a merit. Atonement is a reward. It's a good thing. Here Miriam passing away, and they're losing the water. They're losing her well of water that was given in her merit. He wants to know, what's this mechanism of when a righteous person passes away, it's actually like an atonement? So listen to what he says. He says, in truth, a tzaddik or a tzaddeket is never supposed to pass on. A true, like we're talking few and far between. A true tzaddik is not supposed to pass away. You know why they pass away? Because the generation that they are living amongst, that they are leading, that they are part of, do not have the merit to keep up with that righteous person. And the reason why they pass away is because of the dismerit of the population. So serious, so heavy. Okay? So when a righteous person passes away, the Zera Shimshon says, you know what the people, the community, the population is supposed to think? That person perished because of us. And that's supposed to promote teshuvah, repentance, and that's supposed to bring atonement. It doesn't happen just like that. And that's how he answers. So why is it next to paraduma, not at any other type of korban, any other type of sacrifice? Let it be by the sacrifice of Shabbat, or the daily sacrifice, or holiday sacrifice. Those are all sacrifices. Why specifically the sacrifice of the red heifer? Listen to a beautiful fact that most don't know that distincts the offering of a red heifer compared to any other type of offering. Okay? Any other type of offering, you bring it, you're done, you're good. The red heifer is not so. After the red heifer is slaughtered and burnt and then sprinkled upon the Jewish people, they're not automatically pure. You know what they have to do? They have to go to the mikveh then, afterwards. Okay? It's the only type of sacrifice that something has to be done afterwards in order to teach us that when something happens, this Zera Shimshon says this, that when something happens in life, you see it, you need to act upon it. If God put you in a specific place to see something, to hear something, to live through something, there's a reason. You see something, you do something. We normally say you see something, you say something. No. The Torah says you see something, you do something. You see the passing on of a righteous person, you need to do something about it. That's what's going to bring the atonement. And where could that lesson be learned best from? From the red heifer. Because after you could be just standing in the crowd and get sprinkled upon with everybody else. That's not good enough. There's no such thing as herd purification. Doesn't work that way. You need to be part of that, but then you got to go on and do something yourself. You got to go and act upon it. You got to go to the mikveh. You got to go to a ritual bath if you want to actually be pure. The Zera Shimshon teaches us, you see something, you do something. You see the passing of a righteous person, you do something about it. You live up to who that person was, up to what their morals and their ethics were. So as a recap for tonight, because it seems like we were all over the place, but we really were very, very clear onto what we started with. We started with understanding what a red heifer is and how it comes to bring atonement. What it brings atonement for is for impurity of a dead body, and the dead body, the reason why impurity of dead bodies came back to the world is because of the sin of the golden calf. That's why let the mother, the red cow, come and clean up the mess of the golden calf. Then we spoke about the different types and the levels of creation and how we have to cherish our special neshama. We moved on to speaking about Miriam and what she brought along with her, and how she had her well diminish before her passing. It wasn't at once, like the feeling of the neshama leaving. That was specific to her and not to Moses and Aaron, because Moses and Aaron, the Jewish people would have prayed for Aaron, and Moses had to die the same way. And then we went on to explain why this whole episode of Miriam took place in the same place in the Torah, juxtaposed to the red heifer, because when you see something, you do something. When the passing of a righteous person takes place, when something dramatic or traumatic in our life happens, we need to act upon it. We need to change our ways. We need to change something if we want to learn from it, grow from it, and help ourselves out of it. May the holy words of the Zera Shimshon and the merit of us learning in depth, I think I see a couple of us a little puzzled because we did learn a lot, but may the holy words and the deep words of the Zera Shimshon give us all a merit to have parnasa, to have happiness, health. Find our zivugim for those who need. Find zivugim, the right matches for our children. To Bezrat Hashem, have our children always go in the path of Torah and mitzvot. And last but not least, Bezrat Hashem, Hashem will hopefully find speedily Rabbi Reuven Tzvi ben Esther Bela and return him back to his home and return him back to teaching children as he is a Rebbe to the yeshiva in Norfolk in Virginia. Bezrat Hashem, Amen v'amen.